We're here. Sean and Cass. Yes, it's the Variate podcast. We're chilling. We're not playing licensed music on this show anymore, so we have to make our own. But we do. We have another show called Church of Chill where we play licensed music. And that from time to time gets us thrown off Spotify or other platforms, which is fun. You know, rebuilding your following. We're going to have a good show today.
Probably one of our best ones yet.
Well, that's what we prayed for.
Yeah, Michael Phillip from Third Eye Drops podcast is going to join us shortly. So
yeah. Do you want to take a few deep breaths and just get into a vibe together before we meld minds with the great Michael Phillip?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We're going to take 3 deep, conscious breaths.
Okay.
All right. We're going to just empty out first. Deep breath in.
Release the shoulders and the face muscles.
One more.
Cool.
Rad. That felt good. I feel like I'm vibrating. I feel good. I took a little kratom.
That does it.
A little bit. You did too.
Yeah, no, it feels good.
Yeah. We do that every now and then.
When I take it, I can go running and have like an extra.
It's the best for that because like it's weird. I don't think that would work with coffee. Like for me, when I drink coffee, everything gets so tight.
You're like a little jittery.
Yeah, with kratom, I have like when you take it, you maybe get like a couple hours, 2-3 hours worth of energy, sometimes more. If you take it in a small dose.
And stamina,
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. You're like, oh, I can keep going. Oh, this is easy. It makes things easier. I remember it made socializing easier when socializing was a thing.
Yeah.
It makes like hot yoga easier when hot yoga was a thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an opiate.
Oh, well.
Yeah. I mean, we're just taking extremely small doses and trying to spread it out enough where it's not really habit forming. And when we do stop, or like, I don't know, I just forget about it if it's not in plain sight or if we're not like going into a podcast.
I kind of like how we're twinning today.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing this on YouTube now, so we gotta look good. We gotta match, right? The color palette should be consistent.
So. This is a challenge I'm up to. Yeah. Okay, Michael Phillip is ready. Shall we call him in?
Oh, he's ready.
He's ready.
Yeah, this is gonna be rad. Let's fuck with him.
Hey.
Oh,
hi.
There he is. The mad scientist himself.
I love that look, Sean. You were just like, it was kind of like you just saw a newborn baby. You're like, oh.
Dude, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. Like, especially during quarantine, like when, I don't know. I know this isn't like a replacement, but it just feels so good. It's like, oh, another person.
Absolutely. It always feels good to meld minds with you two. It's actually been quite a while since we've met under virtual circumstances, so I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, how long ago was it? Was that like 2-3 years ago?
Yeah, probably. I know it was on my show, but I'm not sure when. Yeah. It all kind of, you guys know, it just kind of blurs together after a while.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. I just had somebody on the other day that was like, yeah, you had me on like episode 20, and I was like, oh, fuck, it's been that long. Jesus.
What episode are you on now?
205? Something like that.
Cool.
Ooh,
when
nice.
did you start? I don't even know what year.
2016. At some
cool.
point. So I've pretty much been solidly going every week since then, I'm pretty sure. I don't think I've missed a week.
Oh, well, that's what it's all about, right? Really, not even just podcasting, but if you're going to start a podcast, that's I think that's the thing to do, especially when it's like we're nobodies when we're starting out.
Absolutely,
You can't expect
yeah.
people to care if you're not being consistent.
Yeah,
You know?
especially I mean I feel like that's intensely true for me because I really don't have another artistic outlet that I'm known for other than blabbering into a microphone and writing, I guess, here and
Mhm.
there. But yeah, that's really my thing is to just get on the techno tubes and do some mercurial rambles and see what happens.
What made you have the balls to start doing that?
Somebody asked me this on a recent podcast too, and I think that it emanates from that sort of deep down existential wriggle that you just kind of don't know what to do with, that kind of restlessness. And at some point you realize there is no direct way to verb that thing. So you just have to decide whatever verb you want to do about it, you know? And for me the low hanging fruit was always like just conversation because I've never been talented in any kind of traditional artistic capacity. I remember distinctly growing up with a cousin who was my age, and he just for whatever reason came out of the testicles with the drawing ability. Like he could just like always, we would like draw whatever Ninja Turtles and characters, and his would always look amazing and mine were terrible. And it's just so for whatever reason, this is just the medium that's always worked for me and that I've always gravitated toward, and that I kind of notice people when I started having these kinds of conversations, people just kind of slowly start to gather and then want to ask questions and want to join in. So it made some level of sense. And also I was just listening to a lot of podcasts, and it felt like, there, just like any good art, you suddenly want to do that thing, like when I'm listening to some musical artist I really like, or watching a YouTube video that really resonates. It's just like, I just want to, there's part of you that wants to do that thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you are calling it art, because that's what we want to do.
Yeah. And I don't mean that in any kind of, self-important way, but yeah, I guess that's just what came out of my mouth there.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think it's an important distinction because, like, we always have to, like, in our business of film and documentary, we always have to make the distinction to clients, like, hey, we're not interested in making content. Like, we will if you're paying us a lot, we'll do it.
Right.
But we want to make art. We want to push things. We want to push boundaries. And I think that's what you're doing on your podcast, man. I've never had so many people come over and start listening based on another appearance than when I
really?
was on. No way, nothing. No way. No. Yeah. It's so cool. And
We met like our best friend.
yeah,
through-
one of our best friends, Daniel Fresco.
Man,
Totally, he heard
that's
us on
beautiful.
your podcast, and he had never heard about ayahuasca before. And I guess maybe that was around the time when I first started taking ayahuasca. And you and I were talking about it and just being loose. And so he hit us up, and a week later he was taking ayahuasca. A week after that he was
Toad,
smoking toad. So, and now he's just like our brother in light. So yeah, thank you for that. So I mean, you get the rogue signal out there, man. It really it resonates.
It's weird, man. I mean, because other than only, these people with some sort of opacity over them that reach out via the internet, that I'm like, yeah, crazy that you listen to this and it speaks to you in some way. But other than that, it's only really been a handful of in-person events, and that's always an extra layer of just surrealness, I guess, because so much of it is done in complete isolation. Like, I mean, it really is like I'm just in this like office bedroom in my house, like just concocting weird little rambles together every week. And so it is surreal. It's always surreal to hear that kind of stuff, but I'm so glad to somehow be the catalyst for that relationship. That's fucking awesome.
Oh yeah, you know what we've been likening it to a lot lately is kind of the way comedians their process works, because like Cass and I, we don't want to really repeat ourselves ever. Like, you know, we want to expand on ideas in different ways every time. We want to use different words. We want to paint with different brushes.
Yeah.
And I think that if you're going to be good and you're going to be 205 episodes deep, or how we're like 191 deep, like Noah's deep into this thing. If you're going to be good, you gotta kind of have that mentality of like, okay, I'm working out material, and then once you put out that podcast, be like, okay, that was that podcast.
Yeah.
Now I might build on those things, but I'm not gonna stagnate in that world too much. And it's made me a better person. It's made me just deeper in all facets of my life, because I'm having to plunge deeper depths within myself to pull out something interesting if we're gonna get on here once a week, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, best of luck, man, because I'm repeating myself constantly.
I probably am too.
It's hard not to, just because, I mean, the human condition, as unique as it is in each particular instance, there are so many overlapping concerns and struggles and things people want answered or want to try to contextualize. And, I look at it kind of like a little bit differently, in that I forget sometimes that, because I'm always right up here, a lot of people, it's sort of rare, even if they're listening to you every week, it's only once a week for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. And the rest of that time, they're interfaced maybe in a cubicle life or surrounded by other people who aren't talking about this shit. So for them, it might almost be like comforting and refreshing to hear the same shit sometimes. Like oh yeah, I love this riff. But even if and even if it's not, it's like, sorry, I'm only one person with one brain, with limited input and output, and I can't not repeat things. I don't know. I would love to not repeat things.
Oh, we probably do. I don't even know. We don't even edit
Yeah.
the podcast. We just take it and dump it out there. I don't know if I just know that lately, especially, we're like, okay, if we're going to do this on YouTube, if we're going to try to, basically we're starting over by putting it on YouTube.
Yeah.
If we're going to, it's like a whole different thing. We're like, we have to, let's pop this into another gear. And even setting that intention, we could feel it from the first time we did it. We're like, oh, cool. We're operating on another level. And now lately we're just like watching documentaries about stand-up comedians and their process.
Well, they repeat themselves a lot. It's just once they go live or like
Then-
put it in
yeah.
a special,
Yeah.
then it's gone forever. And
But they're honing, which we can do because we live together. We're together 24/7, 365. We never leave each other's side. So we can be like honing, and then do this and, get some of those thoughts out and like, cool, that's the way I want it out there. And what I love about this medium is, compared to the other thing we do, filmmaking, it's not precious. I guess you can treat it that way. But like, you keep putting them out, and it's like, it's very forgiving in that way. They just keep coming out, and it's like, cool. Yeah, that's who I was 6 months ago. Like, I'd be mortified to listen to our episodes from 6 months ago.
It is weird how it almost has this public-facing journal-like quality to it.
Yeah.
Even though it's not just you guys alone talking into a camera, it inevitably, if you're approaching it with any kind of authenticity, is going to get pretty personal along the way. And yeah, I'm the same way, man. I'm mortified to go back and listen to some of my first podcasts because I still don't feel like I know shit.
Yeah.
And I must know more than I knew back then. So it's like I wanted, part of me wants to go back and hear like what very limited like pools I was pulling from, but another part of me is like, it might be terrible. I don't know. But but on the other hand, when you do have people that you find interesting, that you appreciate, they're kind of carrying that load for you.
Yeah.
But one of the things you guys said before that really perked up my ears is just the sort of mentality change that you said it came part and parcel with you deciding to do this on YouTube, that you were ready to just kick it into a new gear. And I just was reading part of that Stephen Pressfield book, War of Art. And he said the only difference between an amateur and a pro is a choice. It's like that there is that like catalytic moment, that catalytic choice that, no, I'm not an amateur, whatever. I'm doing this. I'm a professional. And I'm actually curious, since in a professional capacity, you guys are filmmakers. Was there like an actual moment for you where you're like, this is it. I'm a professional filmmaker now, or did you just kind of find yourself there?
I think like it happened pretty quick when I tried my hand at filmmaking. Like I think I was very, 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 very lucky in that sense. I made this short film called The Archive, and it was 7 minutes, and it was just about this guy who was trying to sell. He has the world's largest record collection. He's trying to sell it.
Yeah, yeah.
So we made this thing, and I just was like, I was 27, and I was like being very conscious about like, cool, this is going to be my first time putting something out that like bears my name, and you know, I was just being, I don't know, I wanted to do a nice job with it. I did a nice job with it, put it on the internet, it went around, and then that got into Sundance. And then when I went to Sundance, I got signed to make commercials.
Crazy.
And that's when I was like, cool, I'm a professional filmmaker now. I'm being legitimized, but what happens is you realize there is never that moment, because
Right.
then it's like, okay, well, I got signed, but no one's hired me to make anything. And then my first job was for Nike, and they sent me to make this stuff about Steven Stamkos, this hockey player. And I was like, whoa, cool. And then, you do that and you're like, wow. But then you're like, well, but I've only done one. And then,
Right, of
then you get
course.
in this cycle, and now we're so far into it that like pretty much it's like we don't even consider ourselves filmmakers. I don't consider myself a documentary director. I'm not a commercial director, any of those things. Those are things we do every now and then. But the amount of time that takes up in our world is nothing. It's
Yeah.
like nothing. So we just feel like we're in like this state of kind of like psychedelic retirement. We're just chilling out, exploring our consciousness. And then every
Yeah.
now and then we get a little knock on the door like, hey, engage in the real world, go get money. And we'll hustle a little bit and we'll make something, or we get hired to do a commercial. But in those moments you put on the mask. But I don't want to be wearing the mask
Right.
of commercial director when I'm not doing it. I hate that because I'm very uncomfortable when I'm doing it. I don't want to carry the burden of being a documentarian when we're not necessarily doing it. And, we're developing stuff right now, but we're not doing it. So I don't want to carry that burden. Those are things we did.
Maybe this
Yeah.
is similar to you, but it feels like every movie is the first movie. Maybe every podcast is the first podcast. It's like there's no.
That's the choice, though. That's what he's talking about. To me, I feel like that's the gear that we force ourselves to be in. Like, yo, we just fucking got all these accolades about this thing. That ain't shit. That was the people that did that. We're now these new people. And it's not like imposter syndrome. It's like literally just treat it like it's the first time every time.
Yeah.
Like we did a
Yeah.
little ceremony around this podcast. And like to just really say
it.
like that this
Yeah.
is important. We want to honor you. This is your first time coming on here. We want to make the situation right. We want to make you feel comfortable.
We were hoping to do this in person with you.
I
you
know. That's
No,
why
we
this took
absolutely
so
will.
long. I
We
feel
will.
like.
Yeah,
we
absolutely will.
Like you had me on, and I was like, man, I want to have him on. But I told you at the time, I was like, I have never done the Skype thing. And then Whitma came, and we didn't end up being able to do it. And now I'm just like, fuck it, I'm doing these. And you were at the top of the list for sure, in terms of people that like we wanted to connect with.
Appreciate that, man. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I think,
yeah.
man, so many things are coming to mind. Like from what you said, Cass, about how each one is kind of new. There is that weird kind of anxiety around every single time you do anything. There's like that part inside of you that like even if you know in with every part of your body that this is something you want to do, you made this choice, this is in alignment with your plans, there's always a part of you that's like, maybe I don't feel like it. I don't know if I want to. There's always that weird kind of like coming down the birth canal moment where there's some part of you that would just kind of wants to retreat back into the shell and not do the thing. But there's actually a whole book written by Kierkegaard about how to essentially wield your anxiety like a weapon, rather than let it be this thing that prevents you from doing anything and getting bogged down in paralysis analysis, And that's something I've been thinking a lot about, is that, these sorts of emotional states that we have negative connotation around because they're associated with struggle and acute discomfort. They're actually these tremendous gifts. Of course, they can run amok and get out of control and get to a point where they become bona fide pathologies. Like, I'm not saying anybody get over your crippling depression or anxiety, but the right amount of depression and anxiety is not zero. It's not zero. Because if you had zero, what the fuck pressures would you have to do anything, right? And I think from the standpoint too of what you were saying, Sean, of how every project feels like, like as soon as you're done with it, it's like, who cares? I was thinking about this before when you were talking, and there's such a huge chasm just by the nature of consciousness and being individual people between how other people are looking at you and perceiving you versus how you're perceiving your own output. Like there's always, if you have any shred of like self-awareness, there's part of you that knows that you haven't done your best thing yet. There's something like, yeah, that was all right. But even if it's not imposter syndrome, like you said, well, it's not imposter syndrome. There's still part of you that's like, wants to evolve, wants to push further, and there's so many different ways to think about this, whether it's just a survival of the fittest type of evolutionary imperative, or like some kind of Nietzschean will to power, where you just have this thing bubbling inside of you that needs to come out, and your soul wants to show what it's capable of. It's like there's something that diminishes the previous and romanticizes the future,
Oh, yeah.
and I think when you figure out how to ride on top of that via any medium, you have a tool now to kind of pierce into potential reality, a better life, a more fully formed version of yourself. And that's the thing that always makes me feel so bad for people that don't have an outlet. It's just like, what are like the only thing you have is a proxy of that, like watching a movie or enjoying somebody else's work. But there's you got to have that catharsis for yourself via something.
Well, it's their way of keeping themselves in the womb, and not going out there and being a creator themselves. And I think that in order to cross those sacred boundaries, like what a womb is, you have to be intentional about it, I feel like. And I feel like that's the gift of art, is it makes me to want to constantly strive. And when I do something or put something out that makes me a little like, oh God, I don't know, or a little tight, I'm like, oh, this is a bad trip. This is what a bad trip is all about. And totally. I could learn from this, and like, wow, this gift of like feeling weird about having done something, inevitably, like I end up rising up to where that weirdness was. It was just like I was flying too high. It was like rare air, and I was like, oh God, I don't know if I should be sipping from this. And then you're like, wait, no, I could fly up here all the time. And that's how I feel like, graduate to new dimensions. So, but it's figuring out like, whoa, what are these like sacred boundaries that I hold, and why won't I cross them? Why won't I figure out how to get by if I do just burn those things down?
Yeah.
And come out of the womb constantly.
Yeah. I think this is why pretty much any philosopher that I think is worth a shit was pretty obsessed with not necessarily annihilating boundaries, but always questioning, like, why is this thing here? What happens if I step outside of it? Like, does it make me something closer approaching to the version of myself I want to be, or does it not? And, this is, again, Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil. Jung talked about this with individuation. Like you need to, this is what shadow work is. It's those things that are creeping around in your mind or in your subconscious that you have some sort of negative connotation with, or not even necessarily negative. Maybe you just had maybe you've never had a good relationship with your assertiveness or your anger or whatever, and you have to figure out a way to put some kind of cathartic activity around those things. It's you need to explore those things, and again, any philosopher that's worth a shit, the way that they always seem to talk about this is in terms of authenticity or completion, not as in like purification, where we get rid of all this bad stuff and we just embrace the quote unquote good stuff. That's, I mean, what is that? That's subjective. That's a lot of nonsense. But completion, not in the way of being done with something, but in the way of, all of it, I accept it. I want to know what it is. I don't want to sweep it under the rug. I don't want to, actually, I just heard this amazing quote by Jung, where he talks about, if you don't acknowledge shadow material, you essentially exile it to the realm of nothingness. And in the realm of nothingness is where your devils get fat, is what he said. So something to that effect. It's just like, oh shit, because they just grow and they grow and they grow until they spill over into some kind of ridiculous behavior, right? Like the funniest example is always like the gay bashing preacher who like is caught jerking off a guy in a bathroom or something,
right.
you know, like that kind of cartoonish stuff. So I completely vibe with that, of course.
Yeah, your desires become, oh man, that's so funny. I really am appreciating that this is the direction this conversation's going, because I feel like with this new beginning we're having of trying to make a go at it on the YouTube, that there is like a little bit of I don't know how else to say it besides like self-loathing. You're just like, yo, I hate myself. You know, I hate, but also then being like, who cares that I hate myself? Who cares that I think I suck? You know what I mean? Like, do I want to put so much attention and weight on like, who cares? No one cares whether or not I like myself. And it reminds me of, Ramin has this, maybe I should grab it. He has this great, little drawing where it says like, would you be nervous performing for an audience you'd never see again? You know, for a galaxy you'd never see again. And that's like, that reminds me that, you know,
great.
We're never the same person. You know, we're constantly changing and evolving. All the things that are affecting who we are changes between what we've eaten, what we saw, everything from
who
every
we're
moment.
surrounding ourselves with.
Yeah, what our thought forms are. And so I've had this practice of not attaching to any version of myself. So like, if we'll get into it, I'll be like, Sean, I'm really sorry I said that stuff, but like, I don't even know who that person that said that stuff is, and I don't want to be attached to that person. And similarly with him, I don't want to attach you to any person that you were in the past, because all we can be is the person that we are in this new moment.
Yeah.
And by letting go and not clinging so tight to like, I want to hide and I hate myself, just being like, okay, I just need to like keep pushing through this barrier and see what happens. Like, I'm much more interested and curious to see what happens when I show up again, rather than if I know what happens if I sit in my bedroom, you know, nothing. It just like that big demon that you're talking about just gets fatter.
The devil.
Those
devils.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. That's such a great way to put it. Again, you know, that anxiety, I think, is one of the primary ways that everybody can relate to in any kind of putting themselves out there, whether it's like, who the fuck am I to go for this job or this degree or make this phone call or whatever. I mean, that is literally like, this is what courage is. You know, all of these words that have become so like contrived, and when you talk about them in a sort of quoted or cliche way, they just get robbed of all of their real experiential juice.
I think of a poster in a nurse's office in elementary school when you say courage. Like that's how like, whoa, wow, I haven't thought about that word in a long time.
Absolutely. And this is something I was just writing about the other day, is there's this really unfortunate trend to reduce any kind of philosophy, spiritual exploration, any kind of subjective discipline to terminology. And when you do that, you're removing all of what makes it important, that experiential, Gnostic, nourishing first-person experience is all gone. You know, like if you're sitting in a philosophy class in college or something, like, you know, I did, and it was kind of interesting in an abstract way, in a learning about this person thought this great idea and that person thought that great idea, and some of them stick, some of them don't. But ultimately, that's not what it's about. It's about feeling that. It's about understanding what that means for you personally. And again, that's why every philosopher or psychologist or scientist or whatever always seems to come back to turning it back in on yourself, you know, through something, through some kind of primary activity you do. And I think that, I mean, I think this speaks to so much of the ills in our culture. Is the over association with the exoteric, what other people are thinking, how this makes me look, what that person is doing, when in reality, the only nourishment, the only medicine, the only thing that is going to sate that feeling for you, temporarily though it may be, is to do some shit yourself and feel some shit yourself. And that's just, and it's almost kind of hard and ironic that the only tool I have to try to spread that idea is a podcast, because it's, what am I doing? In a way, you could say I'm just mentally masturbating and encouraging people to listen to loose ideas, and I'm certainly doing that. But I hope at least some people walk away from it with, maybe I will try mushrooms or something,
Oh, they definitely walk away from our thing with that. I mean, we we encourage that kind of exploration, and we'll help people out and send them music and guidance and that kind of thing. But I think it's a service, because I think you're not trying to commandeer someone's time. You're not like it's not, it doesn't have like that nefarious capitalist thing to it. I feel like, having been around you, it's like it seems like we all, like our whole little posse, like we all want to help people, and we're all kind of like speaking the same language but different dialects. And it's really cool. Like when you were in town for Whitma, I think we had a night or two where like everyone just came over here, and I was like, whoa, these are some fucking heavy hitters right here. Like this is some fucking interesting people to be around, like Colin and Sarah, Jen Sodini, Noah Lampert, a bunch of other people. We're all just like hanging out here, and the exchange and the ideas, and like even though we're coming from different places and we're referencing different things, we can all hear this certain frequency, and it's really amazing to that can't be replaced, is what I'm trying to say. Right. It can't be replaced by even this, But I think putting out and blasting out the signal that there are others out there that we're trying to render out these realms. We're trying to figure out what they are, and it's not only that, but it's a worthwhile pursuit, because that's art in itself, and that's the hero's journey. That's what your panel was at Whitma. I wanted to ask you about that, because that one blew me away, man.
Thank you.
Your panel was fucking fire. You got, like, talk about heavy hitters. God, the people you had up there.
Yeah, Miles Neal is sensational.
Dude, he made me cry.
Wow.
He made me cry, and it was so weird. Like, I mean, I guess we were all on a little bit of acid, so it was like
right. Yeah, we were. Yeah, so, I actually forgot we microdosed that day.
Yeah, but man, he made me cry a couple times, and our friend Judy was there, and she was sitting next to me, and her and I were just bawling, crying. I don't even know what he was talking about, but.
He has that aura, man.
Yeah.
As not only a psychologist, but someone who is, has a deep contemplative practice of Tibetan Buddhism and is really dedicated to that path, and also really open about his own pain.
Yeah.
There's another great thing. I just finished this book about Jung, so it's really on my mind, but this choked me up just reading it. And I mean, man, it's rare that you just get one of those lines that sort of just goes pew and like shoots through your body, and you're like, oh. But this is one of those lines where he said essentially that only a wounded physician can heal. Like only a wounded therapist who fucking understands what it's like to be in pain can really empathize and put some sort of psychic balm on whatever it is that you're going through. Because if they hadn't experienced it, what good is their advice? If they don't acknowledge their own neuroses, shortcomings, whatever, what good is their advice? And that's one of the things that attracted me to Miles Neal right away, is like, he's totally open to talking about his own dark nights of the soul, his own doubt, his own imposter syndrome, his own struggles. And yeah, that is one of my, I mean, no, I don't like somebody who's overly self-deprecating, obviously, but at the same time, somebody who has some measure of humility and is willing to show those wounds off, it just skyrockets their authenticity.
Maybe that's why it cut through.
He also has a very commanding presence. We should have him on our podcast. I know he's been on yours, so if anyone wants to listen, they should check that one out with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, the way he talks and the way he addresses people, it's so interesting, and you can learn so much about how to communicate and what level and intonation can get through to people, where people can really hear it.
I liked how he was talking about how, I believe it was him, he was talking about depression and how we over-medicate it, even though it's like, it's a gift. It's something to be learned from, it's something to kind of go in and through, but far too often we're over-medicating people and trying to, I mean, it's robbing them of the full spectrum of the human experience, even though it's painful. But, I thought that was really an astute thing to say in front of a crowd of people. And, especially people in our world who might be struggling, who, might not really know where to turn or what to do about that kind of thing. And to even say that it's an option to breathe through it, to go through it.
Yeah. And it's so badly needed from a figure who, he would never present himself as an authority figure, but he, is a doctor of psychology. So to me, he carries a certain amount of authoritativeness over at least somebody who's not schooled in that arena. And there's, again, in that community, in our community, there's so much spiritual bypassing.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah, there's so much like filling in the blank with a fluffy word because I don't know. There's so much of that. And when you see an authoritative figure who's supposed to be a healer come out and say, "I'm fucked up. Do you understand that I am fucked up and that the only reason I care so much about it is because I know how bad that hurts and I want to help other people understand, process, contextualize that." And I mean, I'm just a psychology enthusiast, and it's particularly a certain kind. I'm not interested in like the DSM-5 pathologizing. I mean, it's kind of interesting, I guess. I'm not interested in medications like what I'm interested in is helping people do just that. Process, make sense of, contextualize, mythologize, bring meaning to. And that is not the standard of care. That is not what you get. You get, what are your symptoms? How do we bring those symptoms down to get you back to work, to get you back to being a mom or dad, to get you back to whatever. It's not about, you're probably trying to discover your soul and you're feeling disconnected from your soul. And that is what it can be if you're practicing like depth psychology, Jungian school psychology. But largely, it's reduce symptoms, put someone underneath this umbrella of pathology. And man, that is so not, again, I just feel like that, yes, I don't want people to hurt. I don't want people to just be like rolling around in their bed crying, blubbering all day. But also, I think that it's about more than that in most cases. I do think there's a disconnection, a lack of purpose, a lack of context, a lack of spirituality. And in its best, in at least the iteration that I am interested in, or whatever want to receive, it would be about doing that, not about oh, it sounds like you've got a little bit of neurotic and blah blah blah. I think when it's a dangerous path too when we try to disappear all the symptoms, and because I think when everyone's disappearing the symptoms, we collectively don't know how to be there for them. We don't know how to surf those seas at all. So, you might have someone in your life that's really, really, really struggling. And not only are they trying to mask the symptoms themselves with whatever they got to do, but then we're encouraging them to stay at work and we're encouraging this and that, as opposed to like, I think it's part of what leads to mental health stigmatization is because it's so disappeared and masked, and we don't want to address it, so we don't know how to be there for each other necessarily. And I think that's why this problem keeps spiraling out of control and new symptoms pop up.
Well, why I like psychedelics as kind of a cure-all is because it brings the sacred into every moment, into every action.
That's
it's
right.
like you don't have to, if you've been dreaming about starting a podcast, you don't have to start that podcast to be happy about yourself or be fulfilled in your life. Like you can tap into the sacred way you wake up in the morning and the routine you do, how you put a meal together, how you present a meal, how you call and talk to your loved ones. That's what mushrooms and LSD and stuff like that has done for me, is reminding me that there's not something that needs to be done in order for me to feel fulfilled. It's about showing up to the moment and recognizing the sacredness of that moment. And that's where I'm at now with this quarantine, is I go through days where I'm like hiding from the sacredness of this experience of this life and scrolling and medicating and doing I mean, it's so funny. The things that I do that I think are medicating, whether it's like the scroll, they make it worse.
Yeah,
they
that's
they
funny.
they exasperate mental health.
At least you're aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what, and that's what psychedelics also do, is like they bring an awareness to your state of being, that you can affect your state of being, that very little things can affect your state of being, bringing your attention back to your breath can affect your state of being, standing up straight can affect your state of being, taking a shower can affect your state of being, and it's something that we all know, but there's that practical experience of being in the psychedelic realm. Like people tell you like, oh, if you exercise you'll feel better, but something about taking the psychedelics and recognizing the energetic body that you have, how tapped in and connected you are to everything else in the universe, can really set it in and be like, oh fuck, it's not like just I need these endorphins, it's that my body's a temple and I have to serve it in order for it to serve me.
Right on.
Yeah.
I think one of go for it.
No, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just as she was saying that, I was like, wow, I think one of the most psychedelic things about quarantine is like that deep appreciation for the way it was before, like not capitalism, exploitation, all that stuff. The fact that we could be sitting here together very casually, not even thinking about germs, not even thinking about transferring things, like that gratitude of just like, oh man, when we do get to do that, I'm gonna fucking show up. And like that's definitely what like a long night of ayahuasca will do for you. You're just like,
oh yeah,
fuck
yeah, man.
God damn.
Well, you just said what I was gonna say anyway, because I was gonna say it's psychedelics are like just turning the gain up on reality. Like I always like do a little bit of the when people say hallucination, because I don't feel like I've ever experienced anything that I would call a hallucination.
Yeah, me neither.
I would say there's something in my mind that was there that's being amplified. There's a feeling in my body that's being amplified, and I would even say sometimes there's some sort of tertiary thing appearing where maybe there's some kind of synthesis between body and mind that isn't normally there.
Right.
And that's why maybe your visual perception is different, or you're seeing, you're having synesthesia, let's say. Like, I mean, every time I eat mushrooms and I'm listening to music, I will often see just like, like some kind of chord will be played and I'll just see this sweep of color along with it. I don't call that a hallucination. I call that like an expansion of faculties, because that's not fake. That's not there. It's really there. I'm feeling it somatically. I'm seeing it with my eyes. Like it's something that's real in that moment. And I wouldn't say that it's not real just because I can't perceive it right now. But the other thing I wanted to say too, that like totally dovetails off of what you were saying, Sean, is that sometimes the most horrific trip, whether it's what we're going through right now with lockdown, or an actual psychedelic trip that's horrific, is it reinstills that gratitude, that sacredness to everyday life. And I've never experienced that more viscerally than when I went to Peru and did ayahuasca, man. Night one, I was just I was begging, like, please make this stop. I'm like, I was just feeling sensations I've never felt before or since. Like my body was being ripped apart. Like I was being tormented. Like the visuals were just this like tumbling cascade of chaos, and just like there was nothing beautiful that first night other than when I returned to consensus reality, and I was just like, thank God. It was like just some kind of psychic skydive that was also tumbling through a briar patch the whole way down or something, it was one of those things. So and that now that you've brought up the corona, the most toxic thing that I think I've been hearing in this context, especially again from spiritual communities, new age communities, is that they might be right about this, that Mother Earth is doing this, and because of this, we're never going back to the old way. This is a threshold we're passing through as a civilization, as a species, and we're going towards something better. And I look around to everything opening back up again, people doing the exact same shit they were doing before.
And wanting to.
Yeah, and it's like, where is the change? Because I'm not counting on any kind of top down change where suddenly our government and corporations are like, you know what, we fucked up, we're going to change everything.
Yeah.
That's not going to
No,
happen.
in fact, the opposite's going to happen. They're
Yeah.
going to grip more than ever. They're actually trying to create a wave of desperation, so that the elite class can buy up assets and just take further advantage of us. And after all this, trust me, there'll be austerity measures the likes of which we've never seen. Just as like, fuck you. You know that $1,200? You fucking cash that check. You want to, you know what's out the window now? Social Security. You know, and that's more likely what it's going to be. But I think what may have changed permanently for the good, and it might not be noticed yet, but in the years to come, and it's our ability to listen and listen to each other and hear ourselves, and just having this moment without all the stimulation all the time, and the desperation and the work and the running around, just everyone being told to just go home and stay there. I think it's increased our ability to listen on many levels. So I think that when things do go back to normal, I think you're going to see people's immunity to injustice having decreased. You know, I think that's what I feel is going to happen, and it's not going to happen. We're going to see it over time. I think it's not necessarily something that you're going to notice right away, but I think we're going to care about each other more, because I think we're going to appreciate like a night of ayahuasca, or when you weren't on the trip, when you weren't on the bad trip, like, whew, oh God, okay, back to normal. Fuck, okay, I just want to be better to like the first time I ever took mushrooms, it was like the mother mushroom just grabbed me, pinned me down on the bathroom floor, and was like, stop eating fucking animals and be good to your family. Get good with your family. Be better to them. And like, I fucking took that shit seriously. That what, like you're saying, that was not a hallucination. That was me piercing through to my higher self and getting a message. And like, it was almost like my future. It was almost like me now going back in time and bitch slapping that egomaniac and saying, fucking get right with God, get right with your environment, and get right with your family, you know? And that was the first time, and I just randomly had taken mushrooms. I had no spiritual life, nothing like that before. And I was 32 years old, so I don't think it's really ever too late to have those moments.
It's kind of funny, because it's kind of like what we were talking about before, you guys saying how it would be so embarrassing to go back to older podcasts, but there does seem to be a through line, but that before you know, and that the version of Sean that made those films before he had ever taken psychedelics, like those are psychedelic films that we made, and that you made, and they're touching and they're connected and they recognize the divine human experience, and it's all there from your first thing you wrote when you were a kid to, you know.
I totally agree.
It was like you were saying about your cousin who draws Ninja Turtles. I was like that for spirituality once the mushroom hit me. And some people are the opposite. Some people could take the same dose, the same day with me, everything, and just really not want to go there, or maybe apply that openness to something completely different. But I'm glad that, like, I know the privilege we have is the time and space to apply some of these things, because I think, as you're probably realizing, like, you took ayahuasca like 8 months ago.
When was it? It was the end of August, I think.
So a while ago. Yeah.
So, or September, one of the two.
Yeah.
It was after Whitma, I'm pretty sure, because it must have. When was Whitma?
That was in October. So you might have gone down in like late October.
Yeah, maybe. Man, I'm totally drawing a blank now on that. My history's getting all jumbled up. I got the quarantine asynchronous brain where everything feels like one big long day.
How is this going for
calendars.
You? How's being in quarantine going for you?
You know, honestly, I cannot complain compared to what so many other people are going through, where their basic needs are in question. I don't have that issue. I mean, the type of client work I do is largely done remote, and I can keep doing this, and I've never been sick, nor have I had any close loved ones get sick. So yeah, I can't
Were you
I
a from
can't
home guy
bitch and
before this?
complain. Mostly, I mean, not exclusively, but mostly, yeah. So I mean, I do think it has absolutely skyrocketed my desire to want to travel, to be around more people, to get out there while the getting is good, because it's just there's so these. I also think the utility of these kinds of just like orthogonal disruptive lightning bolts is just at any moment something could happen, and you just take for granted, or you do some kind of weird rationalization. It's like, well, I'm like 34 30 whatever, and I got a lot of time, and I'm good, and I'm healthy, and I'll have so many opportunities to do this. And when you're thinking like that, it's just, you are letting being passive erode your potential, erode the time you do have. And I don't want to do that. I want to be more, like you guys said about the sort of mentality of really attacking this new way of expressing yourselves that you're doing. I want to do the same thing. I've had all these ideas in the back of my head of things I want to do for so long, and I'm just tired of wanting to do things. I want to fucking do them,
Now's the time.
Yeah.
Now's the time. I feel like we say that. That's one thing we say every podcast. It's just like, whatever it is, if there was ever a time for it, now's the time. Right?
Yeah. Definitely.
We've definitely noticed engagement with our podcast has gone through the roof. We don't really pay attention to any metrics on this. I don't really even know how to, but people writing us and saying, yo, thanks. That was chill. You guys are helping me. That's gone through the roof, and I deeply appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. It's just, like I said before, it's so surreal to just get those messages. It's like a weird, it's so much better than, I remember when I think it's the same psychology around getting a gift when you were a kid or something. That's how it kind of feels for me. It's just like a aw type of feeling that a lot of physical gifts actually don't give me anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm completely with you that metric is probably more important than any other for me, at least.
Yeah. It's like that's the only one that I can even keep track of. So I'm just like, oh wow, I'm getting a little sweet note pretty much every day from some random person. So.
Though I would be lying if I said I didn't check my podcast numbers. I'm a little bit of a.
I don't know how to keep track. I need you or Noah or somebody to teach us the ways, especially.
What do you publish through?
SoundCloud.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what they have. I do everything through Libsyn, and it's kind of like an all-in-one dashboard where they host everything and then put it on all the other platforms and stuff. So it's really, for them, it's just, you just log in and it's right there.
Yeah. So. Yeah. We've never fucked around with that. Noah always suggested that, but
Fuck around with what?
Libsyn. We were just talking nerd shit. He was saying how he can keep track of his podcast statistics and everything. I'm like, well, you don't do that. I have to pee.
That's what I just did.
Yeah.
I think too, if you are just publishing on do you publish on SoundCloud and then other places, or only SoundCloud?
Only SoundCloud.
Okay, yeah, you're totally missing out on some exposure then, for sure.
Oh no, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher.
Oh, okay, good.
Now YouTube.
Good.
So yeah,
that's good.
I like this green background you have too. Do you go into the realm?
It's like another thing that I did very briefly when I was also going to do a video podcast when I started this, and there's a few out there that I wound up publishing, but it just wound up being so much extra work, and dealing with the much larger files and everything was just taking so much time and creating so much stress for me that I eventually was just like, I'm going to put this on pause, and eventually I for sure do want to do video and do want to put more content out on YouTube, but it's just, I mean, it's mainly excuses, but it also is the fact that it really is a lot of extra work to do. The YouTube piece for you, Sean, since you missed some of those rambles. I was just saying that she was asking about the green screen, and I said that I did do some video pods in the beginning, but eventually the workload and the extra file sizes and file transfers and blah 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 just eventually.
Oh yeah.
It just got the best of me, and I was like, I'm not doing this right now. Although I do want to get back to it for sure.
That's why it's so cool that we have each other, because like one of us will get
Yes.
extremely frustrated, and I'll be like, I'll look at it for a little bit, and then like,
I'll just be like, I'm done.
I can't. It's not syncing up. It's just it's not working.
That's
but
great.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's I feel like a totally different person just from peeing, and
Yeah.
it reminded me, like, just like you were saying before, of like these little things that completely alter our consciousness, and it reminded me of Colin was telling the story about how he had to pee while you guys were taking ayahuasca, or kept like, and that kept coming back, and it's just like, wow, that does really alter your consciousness in a way where it's like, I feel like a much looser, chiller person right now, and I'm not on ayahuasca. I can't even imagine.
Well, that's where, meditating and doing different things to like relax my body or body scan or bringing different attention. It's like, I used to have so much back pain, and we used to need to like massage each other all the time, and then we just started bringing attention to that place that hurts and like allowing it to be and letting it tell us something, and somehow it miraculously isn't as loud. It's not that demon that's just getting louder and fatter and the whole thing.
What was one of the trippiest things, I don't think we've ever mentioned on this podcast, one of the trippiest things that ever happened to me was we were traveling once, and we had gone through like it was like a stressful trip. Like it was a little emotional. We were with a partner at the time, and we were like not getting along, and like I just woke up on our day that we were flying from LA to New York, like I couldn't move my lower back. I was just like nothing. I could, like, it was, everyone's probably experienced that at one time or another. If you haven't, holy fuck,
it's awful.
Yeah. So the point where I'm at the airport and I have 2 rolling luggages, and I'm just like using them to like just get through the airport and somehow get through security, and I'm just dying on the other side. And Cass takes out this book called All Women Are Healers, and it's just got all these like ancient, I don't know, like Native American.
Takes you through different practices.
It takes you through all these practices, and she read me this part about what back pain is, and pretty much this, as she was explaining it, I was like sitting up, and I was like, I'm fine. It was crazy. It was crazy. You hear about like it reminds me of you hear about this book some guy wrote about quitting smoking, and people have smoked 30 years, and they read this book, and by the end they're not smoking anymore. It was kind of like one of those things, but it just happened instantaneously, and it was such a profound shift from just hearing like, oh, you realize like, it's been known from the beginning of time, if you're having this kind of pain, it's an emotional thing. And I was like, whoa, this could be emotional?
Yeah.
And even just acknowledging that, I was like, oh, yeah, whoa.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things too that kind of drives me crazy sometimes about philosophers or like so-called philosophers who kind of put some sort of partition between the body and the mind, and don't give attention to the actual physical body, because everything like what you were just describing, the idea of like psychosomatic pain, that's obviously a real thing. But also, if you're super out of touch with your physical body and your physical wellness, you're not going to understand that. You're not going to understand that something is off.
Right.
Like a lot of people don't understand that something is off until far too long, because they don't know what it's like to be on or feel strong or feel in control of their body. And that kind of fluency, I think that's part of being like, again, integrated, individuated, authentic human, is don't ignore your physical body. And it's super weird to me that there's this kind of almost marginalization of physical fitness, because it can be, of course, if you're too like focused on like, I gotta get those abs to pop. Like that's not what I'm talking about. But at the same time too, if you are neglecting your physical wellness, it's clearly a big problem, and we're seeing it lead to, that. I don't even want to bring up Corona, but.
No, it's showing how important healthcare is, but that healthcare
Totally.
isn't something outside of yourself. It's something within yourself. What we have is sick care.
Absolutely.
What we
and
are capable of is healthcare.
Yeah. Yes. And it seems like all of the people predominantly that are having the worst outcomes are, they've got some issue. They're obese. They're smokers. They're whatever. And
they've been able to afford unhealthy food for however many years, or
yes.
live in communities where only unhealthy food is available. Or
They don't even think of it as unhealthy food because they don't know, because of our education system. You know?
And that is absolutely one of the things that's been keeping me sane during this. Is like, I always, it's funny because I don't draw. Even every day, I still don't draw a straight line to when I'm starting to feel restless. I'm starting to have negative thoughts. I'm starting to, spiral down really not helpful kind of feedback loops, like mental routines, procrastination. And I don't draw a direct line to, dude, you're a being with a body, and that body's got to do stuff. And then I do work out, and I'm like, I just feel so much more like, oh, yeah, that was just a big, like the anime thing of like the cloud coming out of the head, and it's just like a ball of like scribbles. I feel like if I don't work out, like I just get to that point where I'm just like a ball of scribbles in my head.
It's so funny, even the conditioning of, I don't know where it comes from, but that talking about that, saying that feels controversial. That feels like the most controversial thing we could say is like, yo, you should exercise. Like, it's become this thing like, whoa, let's, easy, but it's like, I don't know.
When get your blood pumping.
When someone's not exercising and they're complaining about lack of sleep, instability with their mood or whatever, God, it's so hard for me to restrain myself from being like, just go for a fucking run. Try that. Just try that. Or anything. Jumping jacks. Yeah. Jumping jacks are great. They're really good.
Yeah. How funny is it that I think that's one of the really most pernicious things about PC culture is that if you say anything that starts to make someone feel uncomfortable because they're like, I've been neglecting my body and now I'm uncomfortable because that's a fact, It's super weird because that is exactly what we were talking about before when we were talking about sweeping your demons under the rug and pretending that they're not a problem and they just get bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, in this instance, they literally get bigger and bigger, and it's crazy. I mean, that's one of the big, I don't want to get on some sort of like weird like alpha male rant about like trophy culture, but that's kind of what it is, It's like it's the constant padding of everything that's actually preventing people from getting better, from feeling better about themselves, because like I think it goes back to what we were talking about before with the anxiety, the depression, the bad feelings, but figuring out how to like use them to propel yourself instead of shrink away from it. It's you have to be willing to suffer constructive criticism, or it's like you can't feel better, you can't improve, you can't contextualize yourself.
Oh, and I think there's a lot of padding when it comes to relationship, like he's not a good partner if he like gives you like says the tough love. I'm like, no, that's the partner I want the partner that's like, are you really gonna eat 3 helpings of french fries? Like, I want the partner that like reminds me of the things that I can't see. No, we do it to each other. Like we're tough we're tough lovers, but it's also one of those things that nothing is really worth getting on your case, but you need to trust that, at least for me, like I'll go through a cycle of not taking care of myself and I'm like, oh, look at me in this not cycle, which is maybe like yesterday was like this is an indulgent, feel like shit about myself cycle, but I don't need to burst out of it today. I can accept it and let it be and trust that tomorrow I'll wake up better with more energy. Totally. And I did.
Yeah.
And you know what ruined my morning, my day? Fucking scrolling through TikTok. I was like, I'm gonna meditate, but before I meditate, my dad of all people sends me a TikTok, and he doesn't even have TikTok, but I guess there was some one on about Trump, or like some women are using Trump's voice and pretending to be like drunk and stuff. And so then I ended up in the TikTok vortex for an hour, and I swear to God, it ruined my day. I was like, this is horrible. Like I've consumed so much media, like funny, not funny. It's the
equivalent of eating a fucking box of Oreos.
It really is, yeah.
You know, it's like, oh,
I'm
okay.
so guilty of it too. I am so guilty of it too.
What's your drug of choice?
Yeah.
I don't. So I've avoided TikTok so far, thankfully.
It's so good.
I mean,
it's the best drug.
It's especially noticeable over the last couple of years since Instagram changed their algorithm, because you don't see everything chronologically anymore. They have their weird little algorithm of what they show you. So if you get down one of those like scroll holes where you like scroll for a few minutes, put your phone away, pick it back up, scroll again, you just keep seeing the same shit.
Yeah.
And I noticed myself looking at the same shit for the third or fourth time. And that's when the scribbles start that I was describing earlier. Yeah. And I just start thinking to myself, what are you doing? You're literally just going through weird behavior patterns that have no purpose because you're probably trying to avoid something. And this is something that I really appreciated from Young too, is he said that one of the primary pieces of advice he would give to his students that are also going into psychotherapy, and someone is describing some sort of neurotic behavior, and he doesn't say posit this to this person right away, but he said immediately think to yourself as the therapist, what is this person avoiding? You know, what is this person avoiding? Because I feel like for me, if I ask myself that question in those moments of just the really shitty feedback loop behaviors, it's pretty clear that I'm like, yeah, I should be doing this. I should check that. Or I'm avoiding actually sitting down and thinking about how I should be using my time. It's usually something along those lines, I think anyway.
And to me, it doesn't have to be an extreme. If I find myself caught up in scrollaholism and I'm like, oh God, you know, I obviously want something, whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal if I just shift that over to like, I'm just going to watch a Grateful Dead show. And like, to me, that's better. It's like my attention isn't being pulled everywhere. It feels medicinal.
Yeah.
It's not like I have to go like, oh, I got to go fucking sit down and meditate and go to that extreme. It's a lot of times what we do. We go to that extreme. But, you know, sometimes it's just like, just a little shift. Like, okay, I'm obviously wanting to escape a little bit. Let me just do it with something that will serve me a little bit better.
I take the Instagram app and I hide it in different folders so that it's not as easy to remember which folder it's in. And then I also want to collectively, I don't care if everyone else does this, but I want to be able to say, like, I look at Instagram Friday afternoon, once a week. That is my Instagram time. But that's a little more easier said than done.
Mm-hmm. What do you guys think about the whole you know, hiding likes thing? You know, I personally have mixed feelings on it. But what have you guys?
You can hide your own likes.
So it's something they're actually doing. Like they're unrolling it so that you don't see how many likes other people got on their stuff, because it can lead to a sort of, you know, have not feeling, like a feeling of I guess envy and decreasing your own self-worth because well, mine only got 100 likes and his got 7,000, you know.
These fuckers, like, it's so funny, like they knew that from day one and they left it in there anyway because that's the thing that got us all addicted and in this whole little culture of comparing and like whatever. And now they're like, oh, you know, it's like fucking Coca-Cola being like, we're not going to be using poison in our soda anymore, you know. And it's like, fucking asshole, you knew from day one, motherfuckers.
Well, we're getting experimented on, that's for sure.
Exactly.
And I'm all for it because I can't get off. I haven't been able to fully not do Instagram because I love and I now love that it says you've read everything, you've seen everything. That is a lifesaver. But also unfollowing people, like, shit, unfollow me or whatever, mute because you can't see what everyone else is doing. I like keep it to people who pretty much produce art. I'm like, I want to see what the art that you're producing is.
So when you go on there, your scroll is only like just visual art. That's it.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah, and I think when that phenomenon is working in some kind of constructive way, it is pushing a little bit of creative anxiety on me, because I'll see like we talked about Ramin before. I mean, what an amazing balance of just, profound but also silly content that is like really engaging and clever.
Yeah.
And whenever I see his stuff, I'm always like, man, I should start like drawing. I should think of something. I should come up with something clever. I should, and I don't think that's bad.
Yeah.
I think when it gets bad is when you just start to, I'll never get as many views as Gary Vanderchuck or whatever. Like choose, whomever. Like that is poisonous. That's toxic.
Or I'm never going to have
But
an infinity pool on the coast of Hawaii.
you guys, hey, you might. You never know. You never know. If that's what you want, I believe you can get it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
I don't think I need that, but
Yeah. Well,
it seems like a silly thing to talk about, but
Yeah.
the truth is it absorbs a lot of our time, and I think it's worthy of discussing, these social media programs that we interface with and what who it's making us, what our relationship with it is, how we can have healthier relationships, because it is one of the main relationships in my life. Like, I look at Instagram more than I talk to my mom, more than I talk to anyone else. So yeah, and we're all kind of in this boat together. We're navigating how to best move forward and how to be responsible, because it's the modern cigarette. It's the modern high fructose corn syrup. It's like, we know it's bad for us, but we're not able to fully let go. And so we're like, okay, can we get on, is Coke Zero better, or is cane sugar better? Water's the best thing? But we all have to do this at our own pace.
It's like a party. Like, when you go on there, it's like, I'm gonna go back into the party, because it's everybody putting on their best face. And half the people that are projecting all light and love are probably actually suffering the exact opposite, because they're spending all this fucking time on Instagram.
Yeah. And we just had an awesome synchronicity, Sean, because I literally was thinking of projecting, like, as you said, projecting.
Whoa.
Like the psychological projection of, basically taking any kind of feeling you're having and saying, oh, that person over there, they're the cause of this feeling, right? Rather than, oh, this is stemming from all of this huge alchemy of things I've been through, and seeing that triggered all of these things that were already there within me. And, the ability, the difference between someone who's at least attempting to individuate is always thinking that way. They're always thinking about what within me is causing this, rather than, shifting the blame or the admiration or whatever externally. And I think that's it's a bit more like, social media is a bit more mercurial, right, than high fructose corn syrup, because there can be things like ramen out there. There can be things that actually do trigger wonder, positive behavior, a desire to do something creative, the ability to distribute your creativity, all of these things. But I think that the slope has become so much more slippery now. It's so much easier to just like make a meal of the frosting. It's like you can just like wah, 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 this terrible, like, just like cramming your face with essentially psychic sugar until you feel terrible, like equivalently terrible to how you would feel if you were eating real physical sugar. And it reminds me of, again, this what Nietzsche warned against in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, which is this phenomenon of the last man, where we would become this what did he call it, like a herd with no shepherd, where we're all just blindly following this sort of technocratic cocaine. And that's really, he didn't use that exact terminology, but he said that it's like a technology obsessed person who no longer thinks for themselves, who's no longer doing the hard internal work. They're just going along. They're just, they're just eating the candy. And if you look at how much further we've gone down that path since he died, like, in the early 20th century or whenever it was, it's just like, it's painfully true. It's painfully true how far we're all going down that path. And it makes me kind of feel bad for myself, but ultimately want to just do something a little bit better,
Yeah. Yeah. But then, like, it's so funny in a world that is just snorting that kind of coke all the time. You start to feel like, oh no, I'm the only one, like, looking around, like, and it feels lonely. You know, I've definitely
does.
noticed that. Like,
Yes.
that's just like,
Yes.
oh wow, am I the only one that cares? Like, is
Oh,
it?
well, Sean will often find himself in the room with two women who are looking at their phones, and
Yeah, yeah. We have a girlfriend right now, sweet little Carrie, and like we spend a lot of time together. And
Mm-hmm.
she's young, so like she's just like completely plugged into all that stuff, and like her whole life and language, like is, through that medium.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of from a time before that, so I do just want to like it is stimulating enough to put on a Grateful Dead show. That's to be watching and listening to something, and like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's flashing in my eyes. So I can't do the scrolling and the TikTok and the pacing of things, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fast, and it's like I don't know. It feels like an assault on my senses. But
Yeah.
these girls just like go crazy on it. It's going on in the room, and I'm
it
like,
brings
wow.
me so much joy to see how creative people
Oh, it's
are and how funny they
insane.
are. And
Yeah, yeah.
It's
People are
hilarious.
killing it out there. Like it's so funny. The people we get spoon fed, like comedian wise, are nowhere near as funny as people that are out there doing shit on TikTok and on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'd be on there if the juice wasn't worth the squeeze,
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
legitimately the funniest thing, and that's where I want to be. I want to be having a funny time. And sometimes the easiest route, like it's like wanting to feel good and using a vibrator. It's like it's instant satisfaction, but it maybe might not be the most satisfying and fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a saccharine kind of thing. And that's what, I guess that's my, old curmudgeon-y guy worry, is that we're withering our attention span and our ability to like really internalize and contextualize, because the beautiful sillies are just like flying by, and they're so just like and you're just like entranced by the like instantaneous entertainment, like mimetic sort of dopamine hit that we have gotten really close to being able to manufacture a nonstop drip of McKennian novelty, and when you have access to that, it really is like being one of those rats that's like addicted to cocaine because they put it in a cage and they're just like, here's a bottle of cocaine.
Yeah.
You just want this, to just study the addictive effects of cocaine or whatever. It's like, it takes something to pick up that book. It takes something to be like, no, I'm going to do this. And I think like we've got to, I'm not going to stop using social media anytime soon.
Well,
but I know that I have to be like, no, you're going to sit down and read. You're going to do this thing. You're going to lift the fucking kettlebell. Like I need to have that like little part of me that's like a David Goggins or whoever.
Let's see your
you're,
muscles.
Like, no, you don't
Come
want to see my
on.
muscles. You don't
Sean,
wanna
you can't
see
even
my
see it.
muscles.
I'll show you mine.
In private. I'll show you my
Brilliant.
muscles in private.
Ooh, Cass, nice.
This arm always looks
Definition.
good though from drying my
Some
hair.
Definition.
I exercise
Yes.
every day. Cass exercises once every 2 months.
It seems to do the trick, but no, it's fine.
I love you guys. I'm glad we've had a chance to rap and catch up a little
Yeah,
bit. It's
dude,
been
this is a
way
fucking
too
pleasure.
long.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Let's do it from time to time now that we're more comfortable doing it over Skype, and
Yeah.
as long as you're comfortable putting it out on YouTube, this will be
of
fun.
course. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Well,
This is it. This is what I got. Take it or leave it.
Ditto.
how can people find you?
thirdeyedrops.com and any podcast platform, and I'm like some variation of Third Eye Drops on pretty much every social media. I think you'll be able to use your powers of deduction and discernment and Googling to find it.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll be smoking DMT together sometime
Yeah.
soon. That's what I see in our future.
Yeah. I actually still have never. That's like one of the low-hanging fruit things that I have not done.
No, I know. We talked about it.
I had big dreams for us all getting together and getting some cabin somewhere or doing something like that.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we'll talk more.
Absolutely. All right, guys.
Cool. Peace and
All
love, my brother.
Love y'all.
Love
you
you.
too, man.
Bye.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
guys. Stay in touch.
Rad.
Cool.
That was really fun. Michael's the best.
we started ripping out our muscles, and he's like, "All right, guys, we'll wrap this up."
Oh, I was like, oh, you don't wanna see these fucking titties? Cool.
No, yeah, no, it's just funny.
Yeah.
That was really fun, and I think he's so good to talk to, and has such good insight, and such a vast knowledge of.
He has discipline and focus to read all these books, and then he can bring us
know.
back all these gems, and
I know.
it really works. It really works for me. Cool. This is the Very A podcast. We're Sean and Cass. Subscribe, especially if you're listening to this. Check us out on YouTube. And if you're checking us out on YouTube, check out Church of Chill, which is on the Very A podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts.
And we have a bunch of movies on our YouTube too.
Yeah.
All the documentaries we've done, and they're available for free. And I think we have our settings so there's no ads on anything. So
enjoy ad-free.
And
if you see an ad, let us know so we can tell them to fuck off. God.
Yes, please.
Thanks. Peace and love, y'all.
Peace and love.